The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Emotions. And my name's Roy Masters. And we're talking about, well, ego and pride and putting people on pedestals. And I'll start this segment off by just connecting it to other programs, the last program, those of you who've watched, and giving it a basis for those of you who haven't watched to understand what we're saying. Now, there's a condition called pride and ego, and this ego requires approval from other egos. And we elect these egos, or we elect these other gods to say that we are gods. One of the typical condition of an ego is it's always seeking approval, but it lives in a psychotic state. It lives in this mental world, because only in this mental world can the pride or psychotic ego think it is something that is not. Because if it would stand outside reality, outside the dream state, it would realize it was nothing. So to avoid becoming nothing, becoming annihilated by the inner light, it lives and dwells in an Alice in Wonderland world of fantasy. And it stays there to avoid reality, and in this fantasy it finds ways to get itself worshipped. Now, a typical situation is this. You find people enslaved to their work. They're very good workers. They may be an artist working for some big company, and they work for 20, 30 years, and they produce well. Someone's going, me. And everybody thinks what a wonderful worker they are, and they work hard, and because when they get fired when they retire, they get a gold watch and nothing, and they get, no appreciation at all. But during that time, spending all their energies, all their life producing, outproducing, doing well, getting approval from the bosses, working hard, currying favor. Now you see a person like that as a little wind-up toy, a slave of approval. But that person does not see himself as a slave any more than the drug addict sees himself as an addict, but he sees, when he gets the fix, as someone giving him a fix for his ego. In other words, a feeling of pride, of being loved, of being served. You see, a man gets his fix from the female. The drug addict gets his fix from the drug pusher. And the drug pusher does not be seen in the drug addict's mind as the one who is Lord. But in his own mind, he thinks he is the Lord, being served by the Lord, that which he is appointed to serve him. He's a God, he's a lesser God, but in his mind he's created this bigger God to validate his sense of being God. And so when he manipulates, curries favor, he's really not serving, but he's really manipulating for that approval. And we can also create for approval. We can work for approval, work hard, and produce, and outproduce, and feel like we're creators. So when people give us this approval, when the boss gives us approval, we think that we are something that we're not. We don't see us, in other words, we don't see ourselves as a slave for approval, which we really are. But we see the smile of the boss and the appreciation of the boss and the applause, well done, because it's the boss that's getting all the advantages. He is really the God. In reality, he is the God of us. But in our mind, in our feverish little egotistical minds, in our little world of imagination, we think we are creators. See? And there are troubles with this. Sometimes things go wrong. You could spend your whole life thinking you're a creator and really get nowhere, but just getting, love and respect and sort of living off of that and dying through it, not knowing that that's what life and death is all about. But there are some people, and this is, I wonder if you've ever had this happen to you. There are some people who are so caught up in getting approval from somebody, they start a new job, and here it starts, that they are so concerned with what the boss thinks, that they're going to do the job perfectly, and they're going to anticipate what the boss is thinking to do it just the way they think the boss thinks to get that approval. But the point is, he's not using any common sense. So he makes a big mess, and the boss yells at him instead. Anybody laughing over that? Anybody feeling that? Now, they're all upset, and they're all feeling very guilty. They try again. They try to anticipate what the boss wants to get because they want to get the approval of this boss, and they want to do what the boss wants them to do. But what the boss really wants them to do is to use their common sense, if he's a good boss. But they don't. They imagine what the boss. They have an idea of what the boss wants them to do, and they do it so mechanically and so clumsily. They make a fool of themselves and do everything wrong. The only true guidance of anything is common sense. But we are so caught up in wanting approval from somebody that you lose your common sense, and after a while you can't do anything right. Who knows what I'm talking about? Anybody had that problem? Yes.
I'd just like to ask you a question. I can recall years back, this was before maybe I got completely engrossed in this psychotic state. And years back I can recall that, people would tell me things like at work, and my better sense told me, don't react to that. I don't have to react to that.
But you do.
But yet there was that thing in me that said, I have to react to that because society reacts to that way.
No, it's not.
You see what I mean?
But you see, that's not quite. I know what you're saying, but let me tell you the real reason why you have to react to it. Listen carefully. The pride is a creature or a reaction addict. See, because temptation, if somebody puts money in front of you, there's always a little excitement. If you're going to steal for the first time, there's always this temptation, excitement which separates you from your conscience. Because this excitement anesthetizes the conscience sufficiently, if it is your will, to permit you to do the wrong thing, to steal. The moment you've stolen, you've been displaced. You're no longer functioning in a resistant way to stress and pressure and temptation on the environment. You're no longer immune from your environment, but now you're addicted to your environment because the creature self, the identity which is of the temptation, it's pride. It's the brainchild of pride. To do wrong and to be tempted to be wrong is the nature of the spirit of the devil, if you want to put it mildly. Now this spirit inside you is addicted to stress or temptation, and it must react. Why must it react? Can you see why it must react now? Anybody can see why the spirit that is the fallen spirit, which is a creature of reaction, has to go on I'm actually saying it has to go on reacting in order to be a creature of reaction, or it wouldn't be anything at all. See? So therefore there is always social pressures trying to make you egotistical, because once you become egotistical, you are become the brainchild of society. Now we're coming around to your words. And society, the spirit of society, is the spirit of the dark side that has ruled this world and caused mayhem and chaos and tragedy and disease and wars and suffering and divorce and child beating and molest. This is the spirit that grows up inside us. As long as we continue to react, we are escaping in that reaction. We're experiencing something called release or relief from guilt. And as I said in the last segment, we're experiencing something called pride. But then the pride is more of what it ought not be, conflict. See? And the conflict, if we don't have something to react, we will cease to exist. Because we feed on In other words, we feed on excitement, love, hate, an exciting new car, an exciting new woman, an exciting new election, exciting new ball game. We must have reaction, because the reaction distracts, pulls the ego, the pride, away from realizing itself in a negative way and realizes itself in a pseudo-positive way. Who understands that point? Good. Now, does that make the point for you? I answered so completely. Do I have any more questions? Okay, so anybody have any questions? Yes. Always that bright lady over there.
I'd like for you to go back and talk about something that you said you wanted to be reminded of 2 seconds ago.
I did that just now.
Creative people?
Yeah, those creative people who live in a psychotic state, being served, they curry favor and they create to get the approval of their bosses, because deep down inside they've made their boss into a pope. You know, see what I mean? They put him on a pedestal and they create, but only so that the boss should admire their creation and say, well done. See, that's what a God is, in a sense. In a real God, the God that I know about, has created this whole universe with so many mysteries and marvels, and he rewards me for observing that and say, wow, for marveling. Because what is worship but wonder and awe?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, if you sit in awe of a chicken coming out of an egg, or just look at a leaf and go out in the field, and don't get caught up emotionally in it, but just let that remind you that a God has created this. You're going to feel a warmth inside you, a life, a reward for recognizing the divine ego, not yourself. Because you're created to worship. And that what worship is, glorifying the Pope, going to church, with lengthy sing-songs and prayers and services, and is not worship. Your body is the temple. You worship by the divine ego making you aware of his creations. And you awakened to that fact that there's something greater than yourself. Worship. Trouble is, we're not involved with that. We're always trying to awaken to the fact that we're the great. There's nothing greater than us. And we're involved in an external relationship, creating things, making things, seeking for approval for our behavior, for our slave state. Some of the most slavish and psychotic people think they are God. They have a huge ego in that little tiny wimp. Take a little wimp like this over here, see? She knows she is. But in that little wimp state body, she's got lots of anger and judgment. And she has lots of fantasy where she sees herself being loved and worshipped, and also sometimes as the chief executioner for all the judgments. Is that right? See? Because by giving in to a tyrant, where if they're not getting approval for that little ego state, and they're glowing like little light bulbs, if the boss doesn't approve of them and is rude, and they get all upset, and they try harder to they try harder to get approval, and they don't get that approval, what have they got instead? Well, their slave state, instead of getting approval, has only got them contempt. And the boss, trying to get more approval, the boss only realizes sometimes he has contempt for that little whippersnapper. Why? Because he begins to feel himself being manipulated. So he's going to get, and then he discovers he can get more work out of that person by rejecting them. And they work hard for approval. Who goes through that state? Anybody know? You do? All right, you've seen it now. But when you can't get that approval for your ego, what have you got? If you can't get love, what do you have? Hate. And what is hate? That's also an ego condition, isn't it? Because what is God but king and judge? King is worshipped. Approve of me, everybody. Recognize my creations. Look at what I've done for you, right? Slave state, really, but the psychotic doesn't know that, doesn't want to realize it, caught up in the little tidbits of approval like a trained seal. Doesn't see it's a trained seal. Hate. The giving of oneself to the tyrant, making that tyrant more tyrannical. Well, you're actually creating evil now, aren't you? God has created evil for judgment, for his judgment taking. Deep down inside the psychotic state of mind is that judgment. Now you're addicted to doing something for someone who is wicked to you, just so you can enjoy judging him.
That's right.
Is that right?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for asking the question. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Masters. I've listened to your program for some time now, and I can really identify with the problems I've created with pride. I started to meditate about 1.5 years ago, and I've had real mixed results, and I was wondering maybe if you could explain the solution to all this a little better to me.
If you can sort of capsulize.
All right, for example, after meditating for about 3 months, I realized that cigarette smoking was just totally wrong. So I sent for your tape, How to Stop Smoking, and instantly overnight, it was removed from me. After 20 years of smoking, I just didn't smoke
No
anymore.
withdrawal symptoms?
Nothing.
Does that validate the things I've been saying about it?
I didn't remember that I smoked the following day until
that
I saw
something?
someone else light a cigarette. But I became concerned because I felt that maybe I was becoming
Too much-
hypnotized rather than dehypnotized.
Well, it's possible that you could have been caught up with me hypnotically.
Because later on, as time went on, things happened that weren't quite as good. My family entirely broke up, came apart, and I lost a wife and 3 children. And I was totally devastated, and I was surprised. I really was surprised.
Shall we explore that for a moment?
Sure.
Because, you know, I'm not guilty of trying to hypnotize people, but
It's not my point.
no, I know, but the point is people do because they're so externalized, they have no inner base, so that the only relationship they have is to be caught up with something external to themselves. So they go from one religion to another, and they go from food to smoking and smoking. They break one habit with another, and you know they go from one woman to another woman saves them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite possible that you may have been caught up with me as a means of escaping from whatever. Actually being caught up with Roy Masters hypnotically and putting me on a pedestal and becoming involved with me emotionally that way can have the effect of breaking the drug habit or even the smoking habit, and without any withdrawal symptoms at all, because you're substituting the approval and the excitement from me. See, so in other words, it does the same thing. It dulls the guilt by being caught up with a religious teacher, an exciting personality that loves you, see, and is teaching you truth.
That's possible, but I was
I doubt it happened to
very
you.
wary in the beginning of you and your teachings, and I listened a year to you before I would use your tapes.
And so when you use the tapes, did you feel close to me? Did you
Not to you particularly, but to your teachings. Not to you as a person.
you understood the principles?
Yeah, almost instantly.
Good, that's fine. Now, I'm quite sure that it wasn't hypnotic. I'm
Okay.
quite sure what happened to you at that moment was revelation.
A physical thing happened too inside of my chest. My heart, I believe, moved and turned.
So that's a perfect
It actually
symptoms.
moved in my body. I was
Yeah,
amazed.
it feels like
Yeah, exactly.
something turned around the other way. Like,
Scared the hell out of me. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
very appropriate.
Thought I was going.
Now the only thing, now, I'm sure now that this was not a problem of being caught up with me.
Okay.
I'm quite, because you seem kind of sane and sensible and rational even now as you're talking to me. Otherwise you'd be trembling
A
if you're
little.
caught up with me. People are caught up with me, they tremble a lot. You know, and they think about, when they think, they say, what would Roy think? See? And you see what I'm saying? And then you know that you're sort of too involved. And then you read my teachings day and night, and you don't understand what I'm saying, but you think by reading more you'll understand more and learning more, and you can actually, you know. And then when you find out that you're completely caught up with Roy Masters, and that all of a sudden I'm in control of you, because you're seeking my approval and reading all my works and being caught up with me, so that you have no more control of yourself. When it catches up with you that it is the case, and I will always try to see that it catches up with you, if it is all possible, then what happens to the individual is they blame me for their own weakness. They hate me, and they run as far as they can to my teachings and become a Baptist. Or something. See? You know, they join the Jehovah's Witnesses or something. So they go completely to the other extreme, and now they're really hypnotized, but they'll never realize that they are. See? Because there's a relationship there that guarantees no realization of the caught upness, and so the game of ego continues until they die. Follow? But in other words, what they think, they just by following the teaching, They're always right, never wrong. I don't want to go into that right now. Now your family. Your family. Am I right in saying that when you woke up and you gave up smoking and gave up some strange ways, your wife saw some strength in you, and you no longer would cow down to your wife anymore and bow and scrape and be romantic and.
It's basically correct. Yes.
And then she began to think that you run around with other women, or you become queer, or
No, she felt I became too domineering or controlling because now I had a different opinion of a lot of things.
well, in other words, she couldn't control you. In other words, am I saying that? Am I hearing that she was in control of you at one time, before that time? That's the reason why you were smoking, because you didn't want to see something.
Probably. The relationship wasn't
right.
formed in heaven to start with.
It wasn't right to begin with your
but it
wife.
was getting better. At least I thought it was getting better up until... by the way, just an aside, she really rebelled against studying any of your teachings or listening to your program, which,
Yeah, well, that's
which was a
typical.
bone of contention between us.
There are a lot of women who think that I hate women.
Yes, exactly. That was...
And now that's the first thing that comes out of her mouth, is that Roy Masters hates women.
Yes.
And if she's one of those women, I'm very sorry that you ever married that type of person, because I don't really hate women, but what I despise, what I'm against, of course, is what Christ is against, is the spirit of the woman. What do you think Christ came to save us from? Not from women, but from the spirit of the woman. Because as I've been teaching, and as you've seen in your own life, the whole world is controlled by the spirit of the woman. You see, everything that's wrong with us, it's pride having gone before the fall. It's being sustained by worldly affections, which are all feminine. See, and feminine spirit oriented. Like the rock and roll musicians are not manly; they're feminine.
It's true.
You see, everything, and even the politicians of the world, they're not masculine. They're manipulative. See, dominating and manipulative, that's feminine. Masculine is gentle, understanding, wise. He's not willful. He has a strong will, but not willful. You can't confuse him and make him do anything you want, but he won't lay his will upon you. And recognizing that the man won't lay his will upon you, but just won't be willed, won't be overcome by a manipulating spirit. The spirit of the woman is very vexed and angry, because it's used to having its way through subtle and slithery means. You see what I mean? And it's the same thing with when you're married to a woman like that, when she sees that you have a brightness in you, and that you can no longer be acted through, and that you are taking charge of her children, taking her children away from her.
That's a very good point, because she felt very threatened with the children.
See, that's right.
Extremely threatened.
So I'm very sorry,
So am
but
I.
I mean, that almost happened to me when I became enlightened, but it was a struggle, and most of the time, if you hold your ground, you can win your woman back, because not all women are like that. Because most women will balk a little bit. They'll sit down on their haunches a little bit and complain and think you're queer for a bit, because you're no longer amorous and want sex and wanted to mother you, and she can't get that feeling of superiority and security and power from your weakness anymore, which she's addicted to. That's all there is between you. There's no love. That's security. That's all she's got. The security is your addiction, your worship, see, and that kind of dope pusher power. You know what I mean? so that most women, all of you will experience to some degree that a woman will react that way. But after a while, if you hold your ground, they kind of like it. They like that you're manly, but otherwise they're going to accuse you of being willful and dominating and powerful and hating women and listening to that creep Roy Masters, that woman hating so and so. So I'm very sorry about that.
I just a final question, if I may. I've meditated now for almost 2 years. If a person continues in sincerity, do you ever reach a level that you speak of, that state of grace where a person's perfectly at ease with himself, his world, his God?
Well, I haven't got there yet.
Ah, good.
I don't know what the end of the tunnel is. I don't know. You perceive me better than I perceive myself. So I really, my wife has always said, Roy, you've got some kind of power. You're different from everybody else. And up to just a few years ago, I didn't know what she was talking about. See, and I really didn't. And then just a couple of years ago, I kind of woke up and realized I do have something, But if I realized it before, maybe it would have gone to my head, see what I mean? So, and it would have destroyed it. So I kind of know that I'm different, and I kind of know I have a power, but then unless you really bring it to my attention, I never think of it.
Thank you.
But it's growing, whatever this is. I think it grows from everlasting, to coin a corny phrase. But you know what I mean. And I think that death and life have two directions. I think that hell gets deeper and more self-defeating and more self-destructive and more painful. And I think heaven is the opposite direction, that life comes to life and goes on eternally. That one is to death and one is away from death. And I know that Christ was right and the scriptures are correct about man, not animals. They never can understand. The ego of the beast cannot understand. The animals do have egos. I'm sure that my daughter works with animals and tigers and lions, and there's no question, she says, and I agree with her, that the animal is ego. And when you fall into your animal, when you sin, you come into your animal, and it's the spirit of that animal is the well, animals don't have that kind of ego that we can have, but because of temptation we fall to the animal, and we also fall to the spirit of the ego animal, which is Satan, evil. Oh, I'm sorry, we're running out of time. It's getting a little bit heavy here. I just want to remind the viewers that we are experiencing some difficulty in supporting this program, and if I can get 600 people at $20 a month to support the program, it'd be very nice. I can't spend the whole program begging for funds because otherwise it wouldn't be educational. I'll leave that to Mr. Baker and Oral Roberts and people like that who spend the whole time panhandling for money, but we do need the money. So here's the book, and there's some cassettes to teach you to meditate, and please support the program and get started on the meditation the young man was talking about.
The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, welcome once again to the program, and we have a fairly attentive audience, but not the best audience I ever had. Shake them up a little bit. And we'll hope to loosen them up a little bit. It's just difficult under these conditions to let your dirty washing out. And we do the best under the circumstances, because I want to show, the viewers, that there's a better way of life, and that the cause of all of the mischief in life is not just simply psychological pressures. We think of pressures as, well, just pressures. Wind, sun, rain, move, stormy sea. That's natural stress. But I say, poppycock, we're not dealing with ordinary stress. We're dealing with human beings that these people who pressure us, that want something of our soul. That we're dealing with a spiritual stress. There's a spiritual stress and there's a natural stress. And the spiritual stress has been with us, and it's been moving from one human being to another throughout the whole human race since time began for human beings. And that the people who stress us have one purpose in mind, is to take control and possession of and to get inside us, to get to you. And if you look very carefully at those people who are stressed, they are themselves are stressed. That they are no longer free people. And they're just doing unto you what was done unto them. And they're doing it because they're possessed, and they have to evangelize. Because once you become possessed by evil, once you become corrupted, violated, that which violated you, the nature of it, gets inside you, and now it dictates how you grow up, and it dictates what you do, and it teaches you how to sin. In other words, because unless you sin, it can't survive. But since it has control over your mind, it makes you think that sin is groovy. Music, illicit sex, drugs, party time. You see all these party animals? These people, they don't think anything of doing things that if they were in the normal state of mind, they would shrink from doing. You will know that the society is self-destruct, and we can't keep people from self-destructing. We hear it all the time, that self-destructive habits, and we just think, well, self-destructive habits. We never think in terms of evil making us destroy ourselves. What animal destroys itself? So it doesn't make sense. Maybe the lemmings. But what animal kills itself? What other animal destroys others as it's been destroyed? There's something inside us that's leading us to self-destructive habits. And what are these self-destructive habits? Can you see? They're sins. Because when you sin, you connect up. When you sin, you connect up to a source of renewing of a spirit. You refresh yourself with your entertainments or pleasures, sins. You refresh yourself. But what is the nature that's being refreshed, you see? That's the question we need to ask. What is the nature that's being refreshed? It is when you plug into all the forbidden experiences, it makes you see them as natural. It makes you see them that you can't live without them. That you're not natural unless you give in to them. And it talks to you, and it has possession of your thoughts, and its feelings are open to that, and closed to the spirit of good inside you, so that you open yourself to it, and you escape into it and draw from it the renewing, nurturing spirit, and you feel more whole and more complete. But you're more complete to evil. See? And then your conscience bothers you, the part that's left behind, tries to save you. But you see, you're not open to that. What does Christ says? See, I knock. You know, I stand by the door and I knock. And I can't remember the exact phraseology, but to the sense that, you know, I knock so I can come in, and I can sup with you, and you can sup with me. See? I want to put something of myself. I want to be in you, and you can be in me. And if you look at the way people sin, they're into the thing, and the thing is into them. They've got it bass-ackwards, haven't they? Right? Pardon the expression. Now, so therefore, everything that's wrong with a person that's wrong seems natural and normal to them. And some people are asleep like that forever. But you people, if you're going to be helped, what you have to understand is that the help that you're going to get is not simply psychological counseling, stress therapy. It's deeper than that. It is that you have to come back to the roots of innocence. Yes, now we have some questions. This lady, thank you very much.
I don't really know if this goes along with the topic of conversation, but 11 years ago I started to listen to you. And the reason I started to listen to you was because I broke off a relationship with somebody. And I was empty inside when I did that.
You were fulfilling yourself for that person, weren't you?
Yes, definitely.
Allowing him to lose himself in you and you in him.
And I had him
on a
up
pedestal.
there on a pedestal, and I still do, unfortunately. I would like to get over that. I am a married lady and I have 3 children, and I keep thinking about this man.
Is your husband present?
No, and I don't really want him to see this either. But I can't seem to get past it.
Well, was a traumatic experience. What was the reason for him? What was the reason for breaking up?
I never knew if he loved me. If he was, at least this is how I think anyway.
egotistically loved you.
Yes, exactly. I wanted a commitment from him. I also had
What
an
kind?
abortion.
What?
An abortion.
Okay.
He was the father. I didn't necessarily want one, but
So this is
When I
guilt.
told
So
him
this
that
is this is guilt.
yes. Is
So-
that why I'm hooked on this person?
Hating him.
Is that it?
You have a hate-love relationship with him because he didn't do right by you.
No.
Is that right?
Yes.
And you know that he used you.
Yeah.
Had to. And you're sort of a naive soul. You thought he was. You had him on a
I
pedestal.
thought he loved me.
I know, but why did you have him on a pedestal for?
I don't know.
Do you understand what the woman thing is for putting men on pedestals, and then what the man feeling is to be put on a pedestal?
I've gotten glimpses of it, but it.
Does anybody want to answer that question? Does anybody? How many times have I said it, and yet people can't hear it? Why do you put a person on a pedestal?
Hell, you end up serving here.
Huh? Why do you put a person on the pedestal? Anybody know? Just ask that gentleman over there. Stand up.
Well, from what you've been talking on the show is because you made him like that, so since you made him, you're the creator of that creation that you made or something like
See?
that. And
You're the boss maker. Let's put it this way. You're the boss maker, but you're greater than the boss. It's a game. Man's ego is glorified through the love of a woman. He loses himself because men need the illusion that they are a god. That's why you put him on his pedestal. He drew that out of you because he was weak. See, in other words, every ego of every man who is egotistical, by the virtue of his ego, he's separate from God to be his own God. But a man can't be a god all by himself. If a man doesn't have someone to worship him, he starts to fall apart. So he has, in drugs, what is a drug experience? But simply a man being worshipped by the servicing of the pusher. A man takes his drugs, and he does see, it appears to him that he's being loved by the pusher, supported. He begins to feel like he owns the world. He feels like a king. That's the reason why people take drugs, because they want the reinforcement. They want to lose themselves in the nurturing of the reinforcing evil. Now, believe it or not, the relationship between man and woman today is exactly the same relationship, as I've said before, as I'll say it 1,000 times and I hope it'll hit home. It's the same relationship with a man with his drug pusher. He loses himself in an enveloping love. He gets into it, and it gets into him, and gives him an illusion which a man must have, and a sense of essence of being. It reinforces a sense of who he is, being king, being God. But in that very moment, he is a dog, not a god. Turn it around. He's a dog that thinks it's a god. And in the very moment he thinks he's a god, he's more of a dog. But he can't get the secret to the equation, because in that very moment of being a god, he's rejected God and become a dog that thinks he's locked into the illusion. You see? And that's what your man friend, you fell for that. You made the typical woman mistake. You saw a need in a man to be a god, and he programmed you through his yearning. There's something compatible with. You found the kind of man that was compatible with your own ego need. See, the mother. In other words, he found a woman just like his mother, and you fit the bill. You rose to the occasion, and you took over where mother left off. See, so he, in his need, called forth from you that thinking. Make me a god, he said. And you also had a recipient. When you felt you could make a god, you made yourself a god maker, greater than the god. When you make a man feel something, what is the dope pusher? When the dope pusher makes a man feel good, or like God, he's greater than the God that he makes who thinks he's a god, the man who thinks he's a god. He's greater. He is total power because he makes this person weak for him. Because then the truth of the matter is he's weaker as a result of his need for the pusher. And so he's less. And when he's less, what does this mean? It means that without the drugs, he will see that he's less. And his ego cannot permit himself to see that he's less. Therefore, he wants to see himself as more. And therefore, he will depend, crave, call, beg, and fall at the feet of Rome. See? Sell his soul for that lie. And that is the relationship between man and woman. You're addicted to love. You're a slave of love. You have all kinds of music. You glorify it with your songs, don't you? You glorify it. That's why you can even the music helps you not to see it. All of that which is between man and woman is sick. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be relationship with them. I'm saying that this is the sick one, and all the sick people don't want to see it. And there's some of the sickness of the sick people in you, the same as them, but there's one difference. You're still alive. And you can seek an answer. And because you can see an answer, there's an end to the problem in sight. Any questions? Yes.
I'm not too sure if it's relevant, but I believe it has to do something with doubt. Should
Doubt.
I ask it?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Many times during the day, will I close the door of the house when I lock up the house, or my car?
Yes.
Or if I have a feeling that
That you didn't close the door.
Yeah, and I go
You
back.
didn't lock it and you close. Yes, that's typical. That you're discovering the spirit of doubt inside you. But yes, you can't give in to that.
I got another question. I don't know if it has to do with the subject, sort of like the subject.
But keep it on doubt for a few minutes. When I come back from this gentleman, I'll talk to you about doubt. Yes.
About a week ago, I had an experience. It's where I was sleeping, and all of a sudden I became aware that I was sleeping.
What?
I became aware that I was sleeping.
Yes.
In other words, I was like aware within the subconscious state, and I started vibrating. Things started vibrating. My head felt like it was going to blow up, and I started becoming fearful. But then since I've been meditating, because I've been having these dreams before, I've been having them. But now that I became meditating, I became objected to the fear.
And what was the fear?
It's just fear of the panic of what was going on in my head, the fear of awakening within my subconscious state.
A fear of awakening?
Awakening within a subconscious state.
Yes.
It was like total darkness, and I could see myself like sleeping, and I tried to wake up, and I couldn't wake up. And what happened, this is what I want you to see if you can analyze. What happened is that I became aware that I was within a subconscious state, and I was no longer fearful. I was like objected to it, to my fears and everything. And like I left my body, like if my awareness traveled through the ceiling. It wasn't like a dream state. It wasn't.
Did you see yourself from this, looking down at your body?
No, I didn't. Like something left me and traveled towards the ceiling and just crawled towards the ceiling. It was exactly the feeling of awareness was exactly the way it is right now. I mean, it wasn't like in a dream subconscious state. It was like an awareness state. It was like my awareness left me and traveled. Then it traveled across the room.
And you never saw yourself looking back?
I never saw myself looking down, and I just started to wake up.
Well, there is a condition which may happen to you once in a while, and where you, especially when you're young, you're lying in bed sleeping, or just about to go. All of a sudden, you see yourself looking at yourself from the ceiling.
But it was like a thought form traveling.
I understand that. You've got to be careful about not letting your soul leave your body.
It wasn't a willful act. It just like left.
No,
me.
I know, but I think you can sit down now because the point is made. Except that you didn't see the whole of it. If you would have looked down, you can't create this. Well, I suppose you can create it. There's an Eckankar course you can take to teach you to astral travel, to travel away from your body and spy on everybody in the world like you were God, looking in there and seeing what's going on. It's a very dangerous concept because you've got to be careful of leaving your body. There's a time in your life where you may have the experience of sleeping and looking down at your body, looking from the ceiling, and you wonder, what's all this? It's only to tell you something. There's two of you. There you have an inner nature, and you have a casing, which is probably, they coexist together. You see, in other words, because one is spiritual, one is matter, they can coexist at the same place. And that this part of you must develop. And you must know that you're spiritual. And it's only God takes you out of your body and shows you this to teach you something about yourself, not to teach you to travel anywhere. Because if you travel anywhere, to cultivate that side of you, you may try to get back one day, and there's somebody else in there. You get displaced. And a lot of displaced people walking around the streets, not just from that, but from drugs. Do you want to know how many people in the country? There's millions of them, millions of the way, hordes, murderers and killers, and people you least expect. They don't look like murderers and killers. They're like ordinary people that's sitting in this room. But I'm telling you, through drugs and through sexual promiscuity and through all the sins we were talking about, that their inner essences have slowly been replaced, displaced, so that the spiritual part of them, instead of growing from within by abstinence and loyalty and honor and standing up for what you believe is right and saying no to temptation and giving up anger and lust, so where it's rewarded for this resistance from the God of lights, because that's the only part of you can take out of this world with you. That's the only thing that can survive death. Right? You're understanding me now? But instead of that, the spirit of pride has entered, and for a period of time you've gone along with that, and instead of this beautiful side of you, this inner part of you developing and shining through, the other side, it draws its nature and essence from worldly experiences, the sins, the lusts, the loves, the hates, the escapes into this and that. It draws the energy, the electricity, the substance of that internal existence, so that you're like a petrified tree. You look like a man. Here's the shape of the tree, see? But atom for atom, your inner being, your spiritual being has been displaced. I must tell you this, and I must tell you this in all earnestness, that you must find this essence within you that is from God. And from within, your mind must be remolded through your mind. You must be remolded through your mind from within. See? So that what you are comes from within and above, and is independent from without and below. And you must be in the world, but you must not be of it. Meaning you must not be created by drawing up through experience, essence of self. The self that you are can't come from people, places, and things. You can't cling and suck and draw and depend. The woman with the man with the woman. Because if the man with the man takes from the woman, he becomes a woman. If a woman takes from the man, she's drawing from the man, and then that's a man woman and a woman man. They both have the wrong natures. There's your conflicts. See? And then from drink, and then from drugs, and then from all kinds of strange and bizarre fantasies, from loves and hates. But you must watch out for fantasy in your mind. Fantasy is one place when you are afraid of the real experience, or when you're not able to get the real experience. What do? You fantasize. How many people fantasize? Don't do it. It'll kill you. Okay? Go ahead.
My question is very simple, and it had to do with when I was up there with you. All the time you were talking to me, I had this battle going on in my mind. Don't believe him, don't believe him, don't believe him, believe him, believe him, believe him. And I believed you. Now then, it's on doubt. How can I overcome that constant battling in my mind that I've had for ages?
See, the war between good and evil is always between faith and doubt.
Yes. And
It's always that.
And that squeezy feeling up my leg, which I feel now, it gets heavy sometimes. It did in the past.
Well, I can't talk about that
Okay.
because it's just too much for me to spread
Okay.
my knowledge with at this moment. But the war between faith and doubt is something that goes, everybody in this room knows what you're talking about. See, because that nature that I was referring to a few moments ago, that nature only lives by doubting that there's anything wrong. Let's say somebody loves you. Let's say you draw from someone's love. Would you say that was an act of faith or an act of doubt? What would you say?
No.
Yes. In other words, even though it's positive, I love you, you love me. You think I'm wonderful, and I draw from that. It buoys me up. I draw an energy from that, a strength from it. What I've done is I've denied the truth. I'm not wonderful. See, I've drawn a self that is deluded, a self that wants to be deluded, a self that's not ready to face the truth. In other words, the very fact that people love you, well, you see a lot of personal people get into trouble. Movie stars and drugs. A lot of you know the biggest problem with them? That everybody loves them. And what does love do? It able to draw the sense that is from the essence that's from the world, and to create a nature that's from the world but is in conflict with God in reality. So that more you're loved, and the more you love in return, the more this process of loving and being loved is actually a doubt of truth. You're dealing with doubts when you're dealing with being loved by people. See, so you see, the process of becoming who you are is a very subtle one. Very, very subtle indeed. Because it's a process of, if you sit quietly alone in a room without love, you start to feel empty, lonely, bored. You start to feel like you need something. You start to feel the ancient conflict, don't you? And then you see this war going on between faith and doubt.
Yes.
You feel this presence, this dark presence, drawing you into a dark, velvety presence.
Yes.
It's almost like something inside you. You can't taste it, you can't touch it, you can smell it, but you can sense it warm and velvety, almost seductive. Almost seductive. And you feel that you want to go with it.
Yes.
Give to it, give into it.
Yes.
Who knows what I'm
Not
talking
give
about?
into it.
Who knows does anybody know how many people, honest? How you've experienced it, haven't you? That's the self, that part of you that wants to survive selfishly, egotistically, has to lose itself to find itself in that darkness. Do you understand that? So that whenever you sit and meditate and you're assaulted by this, as a matter of fact, you can hear it going on when you listen to my program. Don't listen to him, he's crazy. Something wrong. There's something wrong in you, something dark and sinister that keeps assaulting you to keep you from knowing the truth, to set you free from that. Because it and its protege in you, its brainchild in you, survive on the opposite of the light. So if you live, if that's why you've given into it so often, because you thought it was life, you thought it was love, you thought it was nurturing, you thought it was existence, you thought you couldn't live without it, and it made you think that the light would kill you. But I tell you, when you live in the light, you'll find people think that you're dark and that you're crazy and you're insane. You'll find people reacting to you as though that doubt person now operates in a separate individual. Not both inside you, but it's outside you, in them only. Yes, well, I see that I've run to the end of my time, and we'll do another program tomorrow evening for the viewers, and it's still this evening for our audience this evening, and I think we're just warming up now, aren't we? Okay, and I hope that you'll support our program, because the kind of discussion you won't find any TV program anywhere. Thanks for listening, and join us in the next broadcast.
The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Well, hello again, and the subject matter is what makes women tick, because we're also beginning to see what makes men tick too, but mostly we're preoccupied with the ladies and finding out how they function. And I've been saying, just very quickly, that women have a level of consciousness that men, well, it's a space that men come into, and well, that's the end of them. It's like going, as I said before, it's like going from West Germany into East Germany. You come under a different power. And then men coming across to women for the ego support are subject to the spirit of the woman. I say spirit of woman because it's really not a woman that you're subject to. It's a dictatorial power. And this has been a great mystery, this man-woman relationship, the latent dissatisfaction that seems to be always there with them, growing into tragedy and chaos. So, if you've missed the last two segments, I'm sorry there are no reruns because we're going off the air because of the lack of support, but you can get copies of these tapes. The first two programs were dynamite, and it will really lay a foundation, so in case you're flipping the dial and, well, you're flipping while you're flipping the dial, you've missed some of the groundwork, but you can come to the Foundation and ask to see it on the screen. They'll show it to you here at the Foundation of Human Understanding in Los Angeles. Or you can get copies of the program. It's $50 for a whole, for 2.5 hours of these, 5 of these programs. So if you like what you hear now and see, you may want to retrieve what you've missed. Now, any questions at all? What do we have now? Yes, now we have a gentleman right there, and then we'll go to you next, okay? We've got a new face.
Hi.
Hi. Could you please stand? Thank
Sure.
you. I appreciate it very much.
When you're in the presence or in the moment or in the light and you still do something you know you're not supposed to, act under a compulsion, where do you go from there?
What is the something that you do? Would you like to tell me what it is, or you just said...
I prefer not just in general.
Because it would be helpful if I knew what it was.
Well, if you were under compulsion to have sex or overeat, with things like that.
Well, now, it all depends upon whether you like the results of that compulsion. Do you like the results of... See, some people are so constituted, so stubborn, are so rebellious, that although they all have consciences because the light is ever present, so there's no such thing as a person who, I guess, doesn't have a conscience, to some degree, because you can't elude reality. It's always, the nature of man is a relationship with reality, and try to be that reality and escape from reality to try to be that reality. So, but there's some men and women are so constituted that no sooner have they indulged in their particular peculiar pleasure and derived a sense of worth, which immediately crumbles into worthlessness. You understand that, don't you? Each high is a new low. They are so stubborn that rather than facing that fact and realizing the wrong and looking for a different answer than the answer, they go back to the other answer, which is to save themselves from seeing. In other words, the wrong looks more attractive because it takes them away from the conscience. Conscience they don't want to have, because pride forbids it. How can pride have conscience? It means you're less than you think you are. There's something greater than you, and you're less. That's how you feel inferiority, by virtue of conscience. By trying to be more, you discover that you've become less. That's what you discover. For a moment you think you're becoming more, but that only moment is only illusion supported by emotions and feelings and sensations. When the electricity of that, the smoldering and the smoke is cleared, what have you got? The realization that you're less. Now, there's something about ego that is stubborn, and some people are stubborn right to the grave and beyond. Now, that's all I can tell you. You and I will do a number of those little things, and we'll begin to see that it has a diminishing return, and we start to search, and then men like me come into view. Like when the student is ready, the master appears, and here I am, Roy Masters. See? But the point is that that's the principle. You start to be compatible with someone who's going the way that you are seeking. I'll become your guide for a while. And I don't have any guides, by the way. And one of these days you won't have any guides either, because I'm just launching you into I'm taking you to the threshold and giving you a little kick in the rear end, and you go sailing. Okay? There's a lady way back there, if you just run fast enough. Okay, now, what can I do for you?
Well, I've had this question in my mind all day, and he just sort of opened the door to it. I'm finding that things in my life are, I meditate, and things in my life are starting to come together, and things are really nice, and I'm beginning to see how I sabotage and how I've sabotaged myself. And I'm getting to today I was noticing that I was very stubborn, like you were talking about, and I was putting my heels in the ground.
Digging in
and like angry, because it's like I don't want to go forward. I like where I'm at. And
Do
it's
you
like
really?
a responsibility. I can see a responsibility, and it's embarrassing for me to say it, but I feel that I need to express myself and wonder why I'm doing this.
Well, you have to tell me what the this is that you're doing.
Well,
It's either not clear
okay,
otherwise.
like basically a little thing is like with the food. I was doing really well with not overeating and whatever, and with almost everything. And today it was like, so I feel silly.
You pigged
I
out.
wanted to go pork out on nachos, and I knew that was.
I could just read the proclamation of hell. Miss Jane Smith porked out on nachos. It just does. This is your sin. So no, it's probably not a flagging or sagging of your intent, because I think you're a well-intentioned lady, my opinion. But I think setbacks come from subtle disturbances in your world, frustrations and angers which surface and you do not realize have pulled you away from the sensible and awakened the sensual. Is that correct? Something must have upset you that you didn't quite catch. The result of that, it sets the wheels of the cycle of nature, the wheel of life and death.
Well, it's it's what I noticed yesterday was partly your teachings about me as a woman. I started to resent it, and it was.
Can you imagine how the women live feels?
Exactly. And that was part of it, and I was angry, and it was like I didn't want to see.
You angry with me?
Yes, for the first time, but not really. I mean,
Something
yes,
in you was, but not you was.
Exactly.
And so the minute you start to do that, you see how the rebellion, fed by the anger, awakens the senses,
That's it.
and you can't be sensible then?
That's right.
Can you see how why people won't give up anger? Does anybody see why we won't give up anger? It's because anger is the sin that awakens the senses. It awakens it sharpens the appetite for pleasure because of the pain of this. It opens your soul to receive love, the pleasures of love. See, it opens your soul outwardly. It creates the openness and the receptivity.
I can see that, and the thing is that it's part of that is just so alluring, and it's like I'm in a fork right now. That part of me doesn't want to let go of that.
I think this is just a normal part of your growing up. I wouldn't be too concerned with it. You're going to make it. That's all I can tell you.
Okay.
It's just I'm not expecting you to have a halo around your head in 2 weeks or something.
I don't either.
So my halo isn't quite in place yet.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I've evolved slowly. It's really a slow realization, and every time you realize there's a little tug of war going on there. Should you, shouldn't you? Should you, shouldn't you? It feels good. Yeah, we'll try it one more time. No, it's not. Doesn't work. Let's try it again. It feels good. Got to be something good if it feels so good. Let's do it. No, it doesn't work. Why is my wife a bitch after I do something that feels so good? Well, maybe it's not so good. Yeah, but it feels good. But never mind, maybe something, but not all that glitters is gold. You know what I mean? Maybe because the drug addict, he's got the same problem. If you look at a drug addict, see how natural it is for him to shoot up drugs, how compulsive and how all-consuming that love is. It's perversion of whatever love is. But you can see from an objective view, but to him, that shot is everything. It's his whole world. It's pleasure, it's sensation, it's everything. It's music, it's illusion, it's heaven. But it's feeling, and feelings are natural, aren't they? But do you understand that there is sin sets in motion a set of feelings that are not natural, but to that which is grown from it, it is natural. And therefore it dares not give it up, because then it's exposed, because it lives in the thick of it. You understand that? I do. Okay. You helped me say some nice things. I even enjoy talking to myself. Yes, this gentleman here.
Sure, about bringing up your daughter with the mind of a man. Is that how you said
Yeah.
it? Okay. Or any woman that was brought up that way, wouldn't it bring on a masculinity in them, or
Well, she's married.
make them want to become gay or something like that?
No, because you see, a man is not a male, unless he's a mailman. You mustn't confuse them. You mustn't confuse the two. What you think of as a man is just a brute, and it has a masculine, female fixated thinking process, lustful and dependent and greedy and slobbering. Is that right, ladies? Grunting and slobbering. Is it more descriptive? Yes, very good. I don't know. I can't be gentle about this. It's not man. It's what calls itself man, and it's what women, enjoy helping think it's man, because then she has a reason for existence. See what I mean? Yeah. Because that's her special creation that needs her, but it's becoming less and less and less of a man the more it's being loved and being loved and being loved. You see what I mean? So don't misunderstand me. What we have today walking around is not men at all. They think they're men, and women never stop letting them think that they're men. You remember that little commercial about bring home the bacon and put it in a pan, and I'll never let him forget he's a man. Remember that one? I like that one, because it really, she's never letting him forget he's a man, because if she does her little thing, and she does the little wiggles, and she emotionally involves and supports his ego, he really thinks he feels secure a little longer, until the next anxiety catches up with him for thinking something that he's not, for this animal that thinks he's a man. She's always making a monkey out of him. That's her business. Making a monkey out of a man is man created over in woman's image, or male created. So when I'm saying a woman's, my daughter is a reasonable thinking woman. She's like a Margaret Thatcher, but it looks good. Margaret Thatcher is a beautiful lady. Don't you agree?
I've never seen her.
You've never seen Margaret Thatcher on television? She's a lovely lady. I mean, she has children, and she's gone through those stages, but she's a very beautiful lady, very thoughtful, very dignified. I can identify. I wouldn't mind her being my prime minister. I have no problem dealing with that. She's the kind of woman that I'm quite sure that if she could find a man to do her job, she'd step back and let him do it. But there aren't any men in England. So that's the best man they've got. See? So she has to roll up her sleeves and do it. You know what I mean? And she says she's doing the best. Some of you ladies could also be ladies without men, if you just were like that, not resenting not having a man, and resentfully playing the role of mother, and because you don't have a husband, and being kind of witchy about it. But if you could just not resent your husband and not resent having to be the administrator of the home, and do it graciously, you'd have the mind of the man, because the mind of the man is neutral. It's not, man is, see, when a man is man, What leads the mind of a man is the neutering spirit. In other words, when a woman is a woman and a man is the man, there is no sexuality. It's the same spirit. See, they all belong to the same mind. The woman thinks like the man, and she helps the man that thinks like a man. She sees what the man sees, except he sees it first. And then she sees what he sees and agrees with it. They both see it, but he comes out with it. He's more aggressive. He says, I think we'll do this, and he says, she sees that he's right. She goes along with it. But it's a perfect spiritual union. Follow that? Do you see that? So you have to have a mind of a man to love the mind of a man. And in your fallen state, if you don't have the mind of a man, you wish you could find a man who was a man, whose mind you could join with. See what I mean? Come from yours to save you from yourself. Now, all ladies understand that. It's sort of, it's a genetic inheritance. It's psychogenetic inheritance. It's the psychogenesis of things. It's very original. Yes, sir.
I don't know if I can be spontaneous now. You pretty much said what I was going to comment on, that our ultimate state is not sexual. It's spiritual.
It is spiritual, and we must refine. We must become refined. So we come up through those stages. Less sex is better sex. So the less sex you have, the more you enjoy it. Isn't it a funny thing? You enjoy it less, but the other way it's just the reverse. You enjoy it less, but do it more. You're trying to get more out of it, but less comes of it. You see what I mean? It's the wrong way. So after a while, you enjoy it so much doing it less, you won't do it at all after a while. You know? And that's the greatest part of all. Now nobody will support my program. But it would solve the population problem, you see. Because otherwise we're going to reproduce like lemmings and there won't be any room to stand.
I want to make a point that when Christ came, that he came relating to the Father in the flesh, and he was never...
Can you speak up a little bit?
Okay, I'm sorry. When Christ came, he came totally relating to truth, to the
Yes.
Father, but he came in the flesh, and his truth nature, whatever, was never... I just never gave in to temptation of the flesh. He showed us...
That's why he could save women.
Yeah.
From themselves,
he
and men
saved us
from
that
women,
flesh
and women
nature.
from themselves.
And if a man can relate to truth,
he would become Christ-like, wouldn't he?
Yeah. When a woman relates that way, she's not. She's relating. Well, we're all.
Well, you haven't got your. I think you haven't got your egg together. Well, you tried anyway. Thank you. Maybe the question you'll catch up with it in just a little while.
I think you answered. I was just
Yeah, I know what you were leading to. Anybody else? Yes, Susan.
I think what he was saying is, if a woman has the mind of a man, she too becomes Christ-like.
Oh,
in
yes.
a sense, isn't that something?
Yes.
And my interest is, how can a woman become that way if she doesn't have a man, if she's not married, she can't find a man with this mind of a true man in him?
Well, I think there's a script in the lost books of the Bible, which are interesting books. There's a portion. Pardon? There's a portion in that where it says, but it might have been in the Bible. I can't remember exactly where it was, but the disciples are saying to Jesus, you know, that the women weren't worthy of the kingdom. And Jesus is quoted saying, I will make her into a man. I will give her the mind of the man, or words to that effect. And you'll find that in the lost books of the Bible. I'm sure you'll find it in there somewhere. Okay, now, go ahead.
Okay, you speak about the lost books of the Bible. I've never heard of anything like that, or I don't know, where does this come from? Or
Oh, it's a very interesting scriptures that were taken out of the Bible, and some of them are even more beautiful than the Bible itself. Some of it's even more illuminating.
And are they available? Or?
Oh yes, you can. With the foundation carries. It's been in print for many years.
Is that where the meditation comes from?
No. There's no meditation taught in that. Now, you just, 1 second, Susan. You want to get that question over there?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what you just said. Jesus says he will give a woman the mind of a man.
Yeah.
So I assume that's then through meditation, through...
Yes, in other words, a woman doesn't have to go through a man. Although, ideally, it would be the way. Because it seems like that's how the love of a woman can become, it's grown cold because of the failing of men and the bitterness that most women feel towards their fathers and most husbands, can be undone. A man constantly, in other words, their relationships, men and women come together to relive an ancient, if I may use the word karma without sounding too mystical and Eastern, to undo it. In other words, men in his fallen state has failed woman. And it only took one failing to establish hate in the heart and contempt in the heart of a woman for all men ever since. And I've said many times how strange kind of love springs out of the guilt of that ends up supporting the man she hates. You see what I mean? And so therefore, the more a woman has supported a man, the more he'd fail. The more he'd fail, the more she'd hate him. And of course, the whole civilization the culture that we see today is not civilization, but culture. Civilization falls when man falls away from his conscience, no longer lives by faith or conscience. And he lives now by, well, sensuality and the love of the woman. A culture grows up around the woman. So all cultures revolve around the feminine mystique, you see. So therefore, man has deteriorated. Woman has deteriorated. So, and their attractions to each other are not of true love, but as a dope addict to a dope pusher. And they're drawn together. Now, one or two things can happen when they're drawn together. They can renew the old contract. They can make each other worse by giving each other the selfish love. He loves her, she loves his selfishness, and he loves her for supporting the selfishness. See what I mean? And she lives off that failing love. Follow that? They can go on and go into the grave, shuffling themselves together, he becoming her, her becoming him, and the children not knowing who's boss and which way is up, and projecting to the next generation. Or they can scratch their wooden heads and say, hey, there's something wrong with love. There's something wrong with this attraction. This is a madness of some kind. And start to search through the pain of their relationship so that they can find man in his way, find the way, and to lead the woman rather than being led by her. You know what I mean? Lead her into heaven rather than her leading him into the hell. And to the degree that he can do that, to that degree, her love for him grows and respect for him grows, and she is restored. That's as simple. But if a woman doesn't have a man, she doesn't need a man. Oh, one man came in the world 2,000 years ago. We just need that one. I see. And how about me for seconds? I mean, I'm displaying the same knowledge, the same intuitiveness. I hope the same love, the same respectability. My children know me, and they know that I am. And it works with my family. Look at the preacher, see what his family's like. You know what kind of man he is. And I'm all men, and my wife is all women. And if I can make it, everybody can. Okay? I guess my wife gives me a hard time because I guess if I had a perfect woman, I wouldn't have grown. But then I wouldn't have been useful. You see what I mean? I had to work something out. And I had to prove all these things. So it can happen without the man. You can go straight to the spirit within yourself. After all, what does a man do? Is lead a man. What does a man do for a woman but lead her back to herself? Is that right? Put the fruit down there. Don't tempt me. Don't support me. I don't need your ego support. Just be yourself. I love you for just being yourself. You don't have to put on those little games. You don't have to be supportive. You don't have to be sensual. Just be yourself. Don't act a part, a role. Just be yourself. See, and love him. Wouldn't you love a man that loved you for that? But you don't need a man. It would be nice if you had one, but you could still achieve that without one. You can short-circuit the whole marriage thing. If there's no men around, then you'll just have to go that way. Not so bad. Anyway, this is the third program in the series of notices that I'm giving because we have not supported, no one has supported, very few people have supported this program. So I've given the station a month's notice. So you'll see this program decline, and one of these days it'll be off the air. I'm going to mention it every day to let you know that I have given notice, and if there's enough response, we'll keep it on the air. I personally, if I had knowledge like this when I was a young man, I would have been very grateful. And if you let this go and lose this window of opportunity, well, then more for you. Then you can watch I Love Lucy or something and reruns. See if you can get it out of that. All right, but this is the opportunity. The networks are not going to give you anything like that. Networks are people pleasers. And then they people please the masses, and this is not for the masses, this is for the few. And I want you to please take note of the materials that are offered at the end of the program, and please join us in our next broadcast.
The Foundation of Human Understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the Foundation of Human Understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, welcome once again to the program, and the subject is what makes a woman tick, and we're doing pretty well. We're learning a lot about women, but we're also learning about men too, the weakness of men. And I'd like to get straight into questions, if you don't mind, in this segment of the program. And if you have questions, just stand up, and if the whole audience stands up, okay, that's great, but that's not going to happen. You know, I know it's difficult to have this, and you have to hold on to your question and the moment passes, but do the best you can, will you? Just hang on to your question, and we'll get to you as quickly as possible. Yeah, go ahead.
I stood up. No, I realized something the other day. Fantasy, as you were saying earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, is a major part of a female mind. Okay?
That's right, isn't it?
That was a major part of my life was fantasy. Well, I've noticed now that that's a pull on me every once in a while, and I feel like I'm falling. Am I making myself clear?
Sure.
Okay.
That is what men fall into that fantasy in their relationship with you.
Well, every once in a while, something that was of my fantasy life comes back to my mind, and it really draws on my emotions.
Is it something you did wrong in it?
Well, yeah, the fantasy was wrong.
Yeah, but usually some little thing, something slips in at that moment, which you have to fantasize to escape from.
It's a couple scenes that pop into my mind of when I was, playing God, and but it's the scene of the kitchen where I used to live, and that kitchen in the morning was extremely bright. All this light came in, and I loved it so much. It was a wonderful place, but that drew so much on my emotions. And
That's interesting.
This happened to me the other day, and I felt like I was falling backwards, so to speak, and it was drawing so much on me. And I thought, was that just a part of my fantasy?
Well, no. That's what you're beginning to see, the reality of your fantasy. The fantasy world is falling apart, but it doesn't want to go. It doesn't, because something that makes a home in you that you think of as you comes into you being in fantasy. When the soul is pulled into fantasy, the soul becomes a portal for dark forces to enter. If you stay objective, then you see the forces for what they are. They don't enter. Tragedy doesn't enter. As a matter of fact, you don't know what you missed. In other words, if you ever fell into a hole, you might say, and broke your leg and you couldn't get out, and you were laying in hospital after a while for 6 months with a broken leg, and you say, what did I do to deserve this? somehow you fell into a hole. But if you lived as I'm teaching you to live, above the fantasy, you don't live in that blindness. You don't live in, if you're above fantasy, you live in reality. You see where you're going all the time. You don't make those mistakes. There's no mistakes are possible. Isn't that interesting? No mistakes are possible. But if you live in that fantasy, the reality doesn't shine anymore. And then in slips through that mode of consciousness, the mode of the soul is a portal for good or evil, living in the world of fantasy where you think you're something that you're not. That's where the tragedy slips in. So like I said, if you start to live in reality, then you won't be lying at the bottom of a hole somewhere saying, what did I do to deserve this? Where did I go wrong? See, scratching? Right, that's okay. Yes, the gentleman right there.
Yes, I've been told that one of the basic differences between man and woman is a man is goal-oriented and a woman is process-oriented. I'm not quite sure I understand that. Could you comment on that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it dovetails very much in everything I've been saying for the last 4 segments, or 3 segments, is that what is the goal of a man?
To reach.
In other words, he tries to attain that vainglorious Godhead. And he does that by means of achieving in material things. See, and he needs the woman, because this is a rebellious state. And you have to work at being a god. You have to achieve, you have to create your thrones, your Cadillacs, your new beautiful homes, your slaves, your big business, your empire, your dynasty. You have to work at that, but ambition to create yourself out of labor. See? This ambition requires a helpmate to support this ambition. So therefore every ambitious woman, every ambitious man has to have an equally ambitious woman to support him in his vainglorious roles. And so therefore men are ambitious. Ambition is pride. All men are trying to achieve something through material goals.
She's not driven by the same forces?
Yes, she's driven by exactly the same force. It's because she plays the supporting role for his ambition. The pride of life, a woman makes it possible for man to be this way. If men weren't, if women would wake up, all the women in the world would wake up tomorrow morning and started to love what's right, if their heart's inclined to what was right, then the men would have to stand there with egg on their face. They would be without motivation. They would be without their dreams. They would be without possibility of fulfillment. They'd probably turn around and make each other into women. Because that's what men do in prison or places like that. When they don't have a woman, the dominant male, the most ambitious, the most vicious, will turn a man into a take the feminine part of the man. There are femininity in men, and he will cultivate that, and he'll get that man to mother him, to support his ego. But man can't stand. A wrong, ambitious man cannot achieve his goals without a helpmate. An equally selfish woman, see what I mean? Who's actually more selfish than he is, because her purpose is to get what she wants through him. He is her donkey. See? The means of, he's not going to get what he thinks, she's going to get it through him. Because she has him too. You do see that, don't you? That's the whole idea of it. It doesn't always work that way. Okay, we'll come back to you just since you're right there. Please stand.
Oh.
So we can see you. Thank you.
Do men normally have more faith than women to start with, even in their fallen state?
Men and women, as they come out of the package, they tend to be more reasonable. And they tend, in their reasonableness, tend to be a threat to women, to the sisters, to the mother. And they all gang up on him, you know what I mean? Turn him into a little girl. They can. The 10 men, thank God, do have that latent quality. And if they have a good dad, halfway decent mother, you'd see a little male child flower like a like a beautiful exotic plant. Naturally reasonable, just naturally. You wouldn't have to teach him to reason. His reason would just naturally grow from somewhere you wouldn't know he was getting it from.
I recently noticed about myself that I always had faith in myself, but I always had faith in God. But now I realize that I just had faith in my lower self as God.
Yes. Your
And-
false conscience.
Yeah.
That part of you that lives below your ears somewhere.
And now what scares me is I realized how far I am.
And,
away from
men
God.
men have faith in women who have faith in them. You understand how that is? The same thing. You have faith in the self that is your lower self.
Oh, yes.
You see?
Yeah.
And out of that, you love a man, and you have faith in him, and you have faith in what's wrong with him, and you give it a new lease on life. You imbue it with a certain energy, see?
Yeah.
You see? Therefore, he has faith in you. He has faith in himself because you have faith in him. And he needs you to have faith in himself, because your faith in him is his faith in himself. He doesn't have any real faith, you see?
Or could it be that I need him to
Oh, you
give me
mu-
the faith that I don't have?
But you need him to project, because he is the missing part of your empire. He's the donkey, and you are projecting through him. So you encourage him to achieve, but then you take the spoils. In other words, you don't have to work. You don't have to wriggle your body and make a few. Technically speaking, that's how it starts out. Remember I said a little while ago that women. I mean, can you imagine, gentlemen, as I said before, having a body and then discovering that just by moving it and wiggling it in special ways, you can get anything you want. And that somehow stimulates a man to accomplish, to write, to achieve, to accumulate wealth and power. But a woman who is very sophisticated, if she's a very good sophisticated whore, I must say that again, well, the man will bring the world to her feet, and she doesn't have to do much for it. She's like a king on a queen. The man is achieving and making money and being powerful. If you're very good if you got a man and you're a sophisticated woman, you don't have to do very much. You just want to encourage him to get it, and he'll love you for it. He'll grub at your feet. He'll worship you and give you everything, because you help him to become something he's not. The bigger the whore, I've seen businessmen, bald little, fat little nothings, cigar-smoking nothings, in love with these beautiful whores. Pardon the way I say it. And the women have got them so addicted, they give their businesses, they give everything, because they feel like they love this woman. This woman makes them feel like something they're not. And it just costs them more and more and more to do it. And the woman has so much contempt, she has so much power. She doesn't really love him. The poor sucker doesn't know it. She takes him for everything he's got and on to the next one. And then he shoots himself or something, because he can't stand to face what he's, to look at what he is without her.
Yeah.
That's the story of a lot of men's lives, you know what I mean?
May I say something about what's going on in my life with me? I've always had in the past I've been known as like a label like a hypochondriac, where I would think that I had something wrong with me physically, and stuff like that.
Well, you had a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
And you're looking for a place to locate it.
Yeah.
You read a medical book, you have every sickness in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. Oh, I got that, yeah. But you were trying to identify it physically. See, in other words, guilt is wrong. Feeling that something is wrong, right? But you'd much rather, but being not spiritual, you want to identify the wrong as a physical location. It's much more comforting to think you have cancer than to know that you're the picture of Dorian Gray. You know what I mean? You'd much rather it be physical than be wrong spiritually. Discover that you are wrong in the head. See, because the ego can't take that. Much rather find a location. Something wrong with my body. I knew it. It's not me. It wasn't my imagination. There is something wrong with me. You see, it's my kneecap. See?
Yeah. But what I've been doing is going to my husband for faith. you know, do you think there's something wrong with me, you know, and all this other stuff. And I don't
Well,
know.
he can't give you the kind of love that corrects you. I think what you're like a little child. Women are like little girls. They want a daddy to comfort them, and he's not able to do it. And you resent him for that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the sickness worse. And then the guilt. And they think, oh, there is something wrong with me, but you know somehow that he has it, but he won't give it to you. You go to him for love, but he doesn't know what you want from him. All he does is comfort you in a way like a woman does at the very best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See, sickness, although we weren't talking about sickness, we're talking about where women tick. But sickness is like, in the body, is like a little child who's naughty. And the little child's naughty, and he draws attention to his daddy. And daddy won't give him that attention. Just leave me alone, I haven't got time for you. Resents the child for distracting him from his work. Well, the child gets angrier. And then what happens with the child getting upset with dad? The child's got a bigger problem. And the bigger problem needs correction. And dad is the only one that can correct. Seems to have the key. And she tugs on his shirt or jacket and tries to get attention, but he won't give it. Child resents it. Child's worse. All the father has to do is give attention to the child. Let the kid say what he wants to say, express what he wants to and the kid's better. Simple. The problem's solved. All he needs is that love. Just that little honest attention. That's what women want. A little honest attention. But what do they get? They get the wrong kind of attention, don't they? They tease and tempt for it, and men get turned on. And if they're ever going to look, it's only because a woman can arouse that and fixate their attention on them. And what it does, it's the same question, same principle. When you have a sickness, you see, you fixate your attention on the sickness and get angry with yourself. It's like that the child which represents the sickness which represents the child, doesn't get the attention it needs. It gets worse. So you get angry with yourself. See what I mean? Or if when you do give it the wrong attention, it's the wrong attention. The doctor says, there's nothing really wrong with you, but you get attention all right, but it's for the illness. It favors the illness, yes.
Mr. Masters, you said that if we had the perfect woman, that we wouldn't be able to grow.
Right.
And it occurred to me, I was remembering something you said on your radio show. You were speaking to this person and they were telling you their problems. And you said to this person, that's the lesson that you have to learn in your life. Now, could it be that through the imperfection of our mates or our wives that we are staring at the lessons in our lives?
Exactly.
Or is it, or I was thinking maybe, is it that personal, or is it just because we're in that?
All of you are perfectly matched with the kind of person you need to perfect you. See, there was something about my wife I needed to perfect myself. There's something about my wife that was like my mother.
Then it's,
see,
it's intended for that woman to be with us?
You are perfectly matched. You would not be attracted to the good in a woman. You'd be attracted to that in a woman that was reminiscent of what your mother did to you. So therefore you're attracted back to it for either to seek more assurance from it in your mature state, which would be the sexual condition with this female, like your father was with your mother when he got suckered in, right? Right. And he never made it because he got worse and never understood what the lesson had to be learned, see. He had another Eve that supported Adam, and they went to the grave together. But see, you're smarter now. See, now you are, the woman that's attractive to you will always be the one you have to, the one most like your mother that put that in you that is attracted to her, in this female. But in other words, this attraction, this fascination is a fixated attention from God, which she answers to when she sees it looking at her. It draws forth that which is most needed for your ego growth, but that's the cause of your conflict with yourself and her. Follow that? So that every time you love, you find a woman more unreasonable afterwards. You follow that, don't you? Every time you give that attention and you love and be loved, the evolution of that is you're not any better off, you're worse. Sooner or later you're going to realize, hey, something's wrong. I've got to do something different than from what my father did. Maybe what I have is not love, after all. Maybe I better find out what a woman really needs. Because mostly you're not concerned with what a woman's needs. The man's mostly concerned what he needs from the woman. Isn't that right? That's typical selfish ego. He's locked out of any knowledge beyond that. And that's the problem. Men don't understand women. They're only interested in what the woman can give them, to complete ego motion. Yes?
Yes, Roy. I was wondering, I have a problem, I think I have a love-hate relationship with women in general.
Well, every man does.
And why would it cause me once I get to know a woman, to not look down at her, but maybe speak to her condescendingly sometimes? It kind of bothers me that I would treat them with that impatience.
Well, wait a minute. Say it again.
Okay, I think I have a problem with women once I get to know them.
Once you get familiar.
Yeah. Then I get to the point where...
how are you before you are familiar? You are pleasant?
Pleasant, maybe looking for their approval. And
right.
Once
you've got it, then
I've
what?
got it, then it seems something has
You
disappeared.
Yes, well, in other words, once you've got what you need, your real colors show.
I don't like to look at it as if it's my real colors. I like to look at it like it's not the real.
Well, look at it from a woman's point of view. Here you have this man that flatters you. Ladies, you can follow me with this one, perhaps. You have the man that flatters you. He falls all over you. He's looking for your approval. It draws up in you a feeling of, well, you're really somebody. And you see this man needing you and pulling out this answer to his need. And you seem perfectly matched. This man loves you. This man needs you. You see, he's beginning to fall all over you, and you begin to feel romantic. And so you rise to the occasion and you fix his need. And you fix his need again, and you fix his need again. But what's happening is all you're doing is fixing a contemptible need. You're fixing something wrong, so that as a result of your love for him, he is, well, less than man. Then, in other words, the relationship with women makes you less, not more. Absolutely. Well, I don't know how to say this, but you're sort of like a fair weather friend. You got what you want, and it's like a pig that's satisfied. It doesn't know its master. And he comes rushing to you. Comes rushing after the woman, isn't that right? And then you feed this pig, and he walks away, doesn't he? Don't give a damn. You don't really love her. You've just used her, and after the gratification is over, and after you've got whatever it is your ego needs, you're going to go about your business. And I think that's what women really have resentment for men about. They see that, don't they see this, ladies? Ladies, right?
So, what causes this, and how can you?
Well, it's just selfishness, Right. Your piggy nature causes it. You just become more of a little grunty pig, and it's what your real self is appearing. You don't have any allegiance, anything, but the only allegiance you have is what satisfies the hunger for the moment. See? Yes.
Okay, about how you were talking about the businessman who has this beautiful woman, and
one on each arm, maybe.
Right, exactly. How would you overcome something like that, or? Because I kind of found myself sort of in that same position, Like I had this really beautiful girlfriend and everything, and I tried to stay with her as long as possible, and I found myself, like I said, in the end, wanting to kill yourself in the end,
What do you mean? You jumped the track right there. You had this beautiful woman, and you thought wonderful. You thought highly of yourself, having one on each arm, maybe.
And I didn't, okay. And then, like you're saying, you buy her things and treat her nice, and
because then she'll give you that lying love that every man needs. She'll give you that. You have to buy that. You buy her presents. You give her gifts. It's like you make her into a queen.
Right.
And you're actually enticing her to give you the nectar for your pride. That's what it takes. that kind of honor, honoring her before God. You understand the relationship between man and woman is exactly the same relationship that man should have with his creator, but he makes her the creator and makes her the nutrient, that which completes him. He's making a complete fool of himself. He's becoming more of a complete ego, but less of a man, thinking it's more of a man. It's a trip that he's on. He's buying into that fantasy that I mentioned before. Yes, sir.
I've found that relationship many times over my life, and it seems like you get to a point, or I've gotten to a point, where it becomes such an emotional strain. I never knew what it was before. On yourself, guilt feelings, depression. The relationship stops. It's like the woman uses you using her, she uses you to the point where you are physically and emotionally drained. And I go like on a sabbatical for about a year, not knowing what the heck was going on my own. And then
just
come
a
back
bit strong for the next one.
Exactly. And it always ends up the same way.
Okay, we must finish on this note. Thank you. The note is that women tend to use the user, possibly outuse the user. But that's what love is. It's not really love, but that is what love has come down to. Men uses, women encourage use. That's it. They encourage that use, for the most part. And then women use the user. The more they can encourage him to use, the more they can outuse his use. Isn't that the way drug pushers are? Isn't that what way seduction works in every walk of life? All right, well, I'm not going to seduce you to send money. I've just told the station I've given it to the end of the month, and then we're off the air. I've tried to be, non-seductive, to be straight, hoping that something good in you would respond. Some of you have, but not enough of you. So I'm sorry that this opportunity, this wonderful golden opportunity, this portal in time and space now collapses. You still have time to change it, because I can always call them up. If the time is sold, I can get a different time. But if you want to support the program and you feel that this program would be valuable for your children and your children's children, look, a few bucks a month, what can you do? $10, $15 a month, you won't miss it. As a matter of fact, you'll prosper through this program so that you'll have more, 100 times your 15 every month. You won't spend it on the doctors and that sort of thing, and the cigarettes and foolish things. Thanks for listening, and join us tomorrow in the next program.
The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Oh, hello. Here we are again. And we're talking about the feminine mystique, what makes a woman tick. And I just want to start off with something that is a little heavy. And I know you have a lot of questions, but I think this fits very nice in this discussion. Now, I've been saying that the men are rebellious to a spirit of truth, trying to be something they can't be, and women support that rebellion. Another way of saying to support the rebellion of man against his conscience, so he can be an ego person and never think that he's wrong, because he's always righted by the love of a woman, which is a lie. See that? So this is the common lot of all men, and this is what makes women attractive to men. And but the thing of this relationship is very poisonous, because to support a man's rebellion against the truth is actually to make him fail. Because a woman, that which is in a woman, encouraged by that which is a man, cannot succeed except the man fail and think it's rising. Men think they're rising when they're falling. This is an illusion. They're becoming something when they're becoming nothing. Now, so therefore, whatever is in a woman that is ambitious can only achieve anything through that perfect deception. And this is what, in other words, women are always causing a man to fail in order to succeed. Because if a man was to succeed, she would fail. The thing in her, that spirit in her would fail. That pride in her that tends to outuse the user, as we were talking about before. So now, when it comes to having children, male children, the same female spirit is in conflict with the male children, because she cannot allow a male to become a man, because the man would usurp the kingdom. She gathers all that to herself. So unconsciously, she's always turning her male children against their own masculinity. So therefore, men fail, because that which fails in a man as a result of the seduction of a mother needs the approval of a mother in order to exist, and other mothers from that point onwards, becoming their wives. So therefore, there's a part of a man that seeks the love of what makes them fail, because failure is what the woman loves about the man. And is what men seek in the woman to support about themselves. They need a woman to support his failure. Because after, when success becomes failure, when its success is seen for what it is, alcoholism and drunkenness, it becomes a total mess, doesn't it? Eventually, her support of his ambition is seen for what it is, in the mess and the tragedy of their lives. And then what do you see? Men looking around for women who simply support their failure. You see, there are those too, you see, who overtly support failure. But the trouble is that young men growing up have one strike against them without realizing it. They're in a war with their own masculinity. That there's something in them that cannot succeed, and is and the patheticness of it cries out for a woman for help. And when she helps him with love, it is only that love which encourages him to fail, because she can only love what is failing in a man, not what's succeeding. And what is failing in love can only find sympathy from that in a woman that loves him for it. Who understands what I just said? You do, don't you? So that is the great enigma, that men are in conflict with their own masculinity and therefore cannot succeed. And such a man is always irritable, always looking at women, and always impatient, because they must react in order to, to keep failure alive. They have to interact with something in the external world to keep from knowing their condition. Now, any questions? I mean, yes, sir. Oh, this gentleman right over here, because he hasn't spoken yet.
Okay. I was going to ask you if in a relationship you just did something for pure pleasure, but I'm going to expand on it. In life, if you just do something just for the pleasure of it, is that wrong?
There are good pleasures, and there are bad pleasures. Which one are you talking about?
Anything in general.
No.
Having a nice meal, having sex with your wife.
There's a right way of eating, and there's a wrong way of eating. And if you eat for a right reason, and not to escape into it and support your ego, not to eat, for fantasy and the pure sensuousness of the escape, then there's a good pleasure in eating. There's an appreciation, a deep and abiding appreciation for the Creator who made your food for you to eat. And there's a right way of fishing. I've seen people get drunk going out fishing and wahoo, and catching more fish than they can ever eat, and just killing the fish for the sure pleasure of killing them. There's a right way of fishing and a wrong way of fishing. If you do it right, it's very good for the mind. If you do it wrong, it's very bad for the mind. It's the same with the right way of having sex. There's a good pleasure and there's a bad pleasure. It's always a bad pleasure when you start to be addicted to it, which is a sure sign that you're deriving something more from it than it was ever intended.
Would you then say that the purpose of life is for a man to have union with God, or to have union with a woman first and then union with God?
Well, he always seeks the union with a woman first, and that's his tragedy. See, because the woman becomes his God, and he becomes the son of God. You know, if you know what I mean. He grows out of her. He completes himself to her. See, in nature, there's a cycle of life and death. The male returning to the female and renewing the life cycle. It's only natural to return to the female. But with man, there are two cycles possible. See, there is a spiritual man renewing himself in the Creator, and from that there's a relationship with a woman. But pride has that turned around. Pride has man separated from God, and man returning to woman as if she were the God. And for this reason, the sex and the involvement becomes addictive, because of guilt pursues. Unless you get more deeply involved, your conscience, the truth, catches up with you and tears down your illusions. It slays you in the spirit. It breaks down your pride. Yes. Now.
I see how, from what you're saying, if you see the results of what you're doing wrong, I mean, you see that you have to come back, just as you were describing, where to the conflict. Okay, and as a man comes back to that, he gives up his usage. Then you see that that's what she needs now, is also to be brought back to that conflict that's going to show her, the error of her ways, like what's wrong with the hatred.
You do realize when a man gives up using a woman invariably becomes angry with a man and accuses him of being a homosexual
or whatever. So then how do you speak
or
to
having
that reason?
having a woman on the side?
You're talking about like that. Initially, you're saying like in what you're saying what makes women tick. You're talking about how much of the mental activity, I don't know quite how you described it, is below here. So it's like as if you're trying to reason with something that's unreasonable. And I just see a terrific dilemma there, because as you're trying to bring her back to that conflict, and as you try to reason with her, what you say gets twisted. It's like if you try
of course.
But you say of course, but it's like.
What do you expect?
There's no end to
She don't
it.
want you to come back to reason, because her security depends upon you not being so.
But I don't see where that's very constructive, because you can tell her something she needs to hear. Now, see, here's what you're doing
She
wrong.
doesn't want to hear
and
it.
here's the results. And she'll twist that, and she'll make it seem as if you're saying something you're not. You're
No,
saying,
no,
no,
the
that's
son
not
of
what I
the
said.
son-
Take a look. Here's what I said.
The Son of God, which is son of a woman, cannot correct God. The son cannot correct the father or the mother. You can't stand up to a woman, because when you've given her the power in the home to be God, and when you are formed out of her love, you can love her and you can worship her, but you can't stand up to her.
I can stand up, and I
Well,
can
like
correct.
I said, in principle, the woman, when a woman has that kind of power, she's so addicted to it, she becomes so addicted to it that she is tremendously, totally threatened by the emergence of reason.
How do you communicate to that? It seems as if it's
Well, I've been
almost
doing it
not
for
worth the
36
effort.
years.
Well, but if you say,
How do you do it? I haven't succeeded yet. I'm getting there.
But it seems as if it's a pointless exercise at times, because to say something, to have it twisted, and then you point out how it's been twisted, hoping she'll see that, but she'll deny that, and she'll just twist that, and it's as if sometimes you wonder if it would be better to say nothing at all.
Does this sound familiar?
No, but to say nothing at all, see, that's not in you, because to say nothing at all is to acquiesce by your
No,
silence.
this is the choice you got. To get confused and get all bent out of shape and upset and get confused by that, or say nothing.
But to say nothing doesn't work, because that's acquiescence.
She
and
gives you a
can see
choice to
that.
be a wimp or go mad.
So then,
Is that right?
isn't there a better way? I mean, do you
No,
really
there's
have
a-
to go through that conversation? where-
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I guess that's what I need to hear.
I'm going to tell you something. You must never, ever stop telling it to a woman like it is, whether she twists it and distorts it and confuses it. You must never get angry. You must never become upset.
But isn't it
If-
amazing to you how someone
When
can
you
do that?
embark on this journey, you better have all your wits about you, my friend.
I have. It's like I have
You
no
better have
problem.
all your armaments.
I can see what's being done. I can see how what I'm saying.
Are you married?
No, I'm. I can see.
Sit down if you're not married.
It's just as difficult trying to say that to your mother.
I figured as much. You're darn right it is.
Right, and it's as if
Does she see? You're just a perfect example of what I've said. She has confused you.
how so?
She has. Well, you're not confused anymore.
No, I
But
can
she-
see the clarity of what I'm saying. I
But
can
you
see
see
the
that
meaning
she-
of what I'm trying to
But
express.
you can see that she's a totally confusing, unreasonable human
None of the
being.
meaning penetrates. None. It's like as if
It's a total
somehow-
barrier. It's like a total barrier.
And I don't. As you run up against that barrier, and it seems as if, well, then what difference does it make? Because if I do say something, it's like we'll go through this song and dance, but it's not in you to say nothing. So
Right.
it's like.
All
Where
right.
do you draw the line? When you bring the point out, where do you draw the line?
Can I
so-
say
so
something
you don't
just-
lose-
The young lady, we're
I'm-
just getting warmed up. Go ahead.
I
Please-
just want to say.
Please stand up.
I just want to say real quick to answer his question. That's where the resentment that women have for men is when they stop, when they don't understand what she don't understand. If he would just push that little bit further, and keep going and don't give up, she will love him.
Did I say the right thing?
Yes, she will love him for standing up
Do
to
you know
her
where
and
my-
not giving in to her.
Do you know
and
why my-
that's the
All you
problem.
see is a woman storming off angrily. It's like finally, when you get down to the point where you're just trying to patiently explain, look, you're
But which
hurting
is it
yourself by
better?
doing it.
Which is it
And
better?
she just
She's-
says, you're criticizing me, and it's like, you
Now
know,
listen,
you
listen,
can't
you
say
don't love me
anything bad.
anymore. You're But which is it better, for her to storm angry or you to storm angry?
You once said you had to
At
subdue your
some
wife.
point, doesn't she just finally say, you know, you're right? When do you reach that?
I will run out of the room.
But don't you sometimes come back
but I
later
will.
and say-
When I leave, and if the man is correct and strong and not resentful and patient, strong with his wife, she will run.
Unyielding?
Yes, she will run out of that room, stomping, throwing a fit. She will go and she will have to look at herself, and then she will come back and say thank you.
Any more,
That
ladies?
doesn't always work.
She doesn't necessarily come
For
back
you,
and say
it
thank
does.
you.
No.
It has
Listen.
that in you.
Hold it.
might take a year. It might-
You're going off the mouth too quick. Listen. You think that if you're going to stand up one time and be a man, just one time, you think, well, that's it.
Forget it.
She'll melt. Let me tell you something. You're that weak and she's that strong. You have to come a long way back from being a long way weak to deal with a long way strong. See what I mean? So in other words, you start and you meet with all this flack. Don't give up. You know, she's going to do she can't help herself. You're in your weakness and having given power to her bully by your weakness and acquiescing ever since you were a child. Your father did it.
Right.
You did it. Everybody else has done it. She's got her way too long. Right is wrong. Wrong is right. And right is might. Wrong is might. Or, you know, right is might is right. Or something like that. Okay. But anyway, she's such a stubborn old mule.
Spoiled brat.
Spoiled.
Child.
You know.
Spoiled child.
Yeah, spoiled, sitting on this great big throne that she's never been challenged before. So you little upstart, you talk up to her, she's going to squat you down. Isn't that right? So, but you don't. You have to learn to take that flack. You have to learn to be patient. You have to learn to be undaunted. You must press on regardless. And you will start to grow. Your character will grow and grow and grow. And she'll start being angry with you. And after a while, in the light of your growingness, she'll see her foolishness. It may take years. And it may never happen. Don't sweat it. You'll grow if she doesn't.
It just seems so curious that with some
You
people...
missed the point.
No, I hear the point.
No,
would
you
never
missed
do
it.
Why is it that some people, it doesn't take years and years? It's like, and some women, it's like you can point out what they're doing wrong, and maybe they do have the initial reaction of anger and denial, but then it's like they'll come around.
Well, these women here, sitting in this audience, have suffered with stupid men so long. See, they've suffered, you know, they've experienced the call to support those men and lived out the tragedy with them so long. They know there's something wrong and they know what it is they want from a man, but they can't tell a man what. There are some women like that. But if I was to be married to one of these, I guarantee you, the fact that I married them in the first place means I needed them in the first place, which puts me in the doghouse in the second place. So I'd have to go, right now it's easy, I'm not married to you. See? So it's easier for me to correct you than your husband, right? But I'd rather give the job to your husband so that you can grow in mutual respect for each other. I'd much rather teach him how to do it.
There isn't one anyway.
But you know what I mean?
Their interesting point too is when a man stands up to a woman, is he's got to make darn sure there is no resentment in his part.
And he's right.
Because you know what? she'll never look at herself, and you can feel that too coming from the man. He may be standing there just like a rock, cold as a cucumber, but you feel a resentment, and it doesn't do
You
any
know you've
good.
got him.
That's
Resentment has a
right.
breaking point. It means it's weakness. And all you have to do is it encourages you to chip away a little bit more. Children are that way with their parents. If they know they can aggravate their parents, they can get what they want. That's true. But if the parent is not aggravatable, it just upsets them that they can't upset the parent, and pretty soon they're looking at themselves. They've got to be frustrated in their ambitions. See? And in other words, you have to be so right. You have to be so in your center that nothing can move you off of it. Because that fact, see, it's your response to the woman that feeds the power for a woman to go on being her more like she shouldn't be. Any weakness in a man simply feeds that power in a woman to be stronger, and you're actually giving her the power to break you down. See, and she scans your chinks in your armor for that, doesn't she? She's like a snail. She's got this. she's
Talking about that can go on for years if it has to.
Huh?
I guess that's what that was the quality you were talking about that can just do.
You're looking at him, 36
For
years.
years it has to, right?
I've got my medal, 36 battle medals.
You once said you subdued your wife. Was that a circumstance like that, the time that you had to subdue your wife?
Well, there was a time when I had to use physical force, but nothing
Yeah, I
out.
mean, you said you had to put your arms around her or something
Yeah,
to
that-
stop her crossing.
Yeah, I've had to do that a time or two, but not very often. But I didn't.
Was that
vent-
the
but I
similar
never vented my
sit-
spleen. I wasn't venting.
You
I
were
wasn't
trying to correct
angry.
her.
I just realized a woman is hysterical. She's going to run out in the middle of the night with her nightgown on, and God knows what's going to happen to her. So you're going to let her go. Okay, dear, go. It's not, Well, there's some places in the world you might let that happen, but you got in Inglewood, California, you don't let that happen. You're just asking for big problems. So you just can't let her go, but she's in such a state, who's going to stop her? Then you have to learn to use force, a non-violent force. It's not the force out of anger. It's not the force out of panic. It's just strength. It's just knowing that, no, somebody has to stop her and contain her till she comes to her senses. That's love too, isn't it, ladies? Don't you wish? You don't have, but the trouble is when a woman gets mad, then men who are the reflections of women, rather than being the reflections of their creator, are angry because the woman is angry. So then when a woman is angry, the man is angry, produces he's beating her up to bring her to the senses. Is that right or not? Okay.
I just wanted to build upon what I saw over here and then what she said, and finally you got around to it too. It seems like that the corrective contradiction also must come from a basis of a non-intellectual contradiction,
Right,
but
right.
true understanding.
A true understanding, not something you've made up and you went to
Right.
church and learned.
When that understanding is there, then you can go ahead and stand in front of this screaming woman and watch her walk away over and over and
got
over
it. So
again
you must have done it
until
before.
finally she stands and she understands.
The
too.
gentleman brought up a very good point. You don't go to church and then bring the Bible and says, God said women must be subservient to their men. See? God didn't say anything of the sort, but that's it's a way of tricking a woman into supporting a man, no matter how wrong he is. And it's a very powerful argument. It's very intellectual and cruel. To trick a woman into that and make her feel angry and feel guilty. No, women are not supposed to support men when they're wrong. When your husband is wrong, don't sleep with him. Don't agree with him. Don't go along with him. You may have to stand up to him. Don't try to correct him, because a man can't listen to a woman correcting. It's not her place to preach. It is more of the man's role to expound on wisdoms and the woman to listen. Is that correct?
What if the woman won't listen?
Well, like, I got my 36-year battle ribbon.
You just keep. I mean,
I have
if it-
never.
you know.
I said, Anne, I will never stop telling you what you need to hear until you hear it. That's love. I never get tired. 36 years of never getting tired. Hello?
Well, how does a woman correct a man in a right way then? Is
That by not going along with him. Because they, see, women going along with a man is an agreement with his rebellious spirit. That's all a woman go along with him and then he never has to look at himself. But if you don't go along with him, then he has to look at himself. It's that simple. You want a man to look at himself, then don't go along with him. Don't hate him. See what happens if you hate him when he's wrong, then you feel guilty. When you feel guilty, you feel like a woman feels when she's guilty. She feels like she did the wrong, therefore you have to go right it by going along with the man and making him happy. And then he doesn't have to look at himself. That's the trick. Men can make women angry purposely. They purposely do irresponsible things to upset women into feeling guilty to get love from them. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about? See? All right.
But what if you, I mean, like, what if you want to say something in general, like, I don't think that's right, or whatever?
You can do it.
Okay, but is that preaching? I mean, I feel a little conflict about it because I'll know something's not right, and I'll speak up about it, and they just ignore it. Like
the trouble is, the good thing you're not married.
Yeah. Well, how, even with my dad, I can't tell him anything.
Well, your dad is a bone of contention with you, I know. But you must speak up to your dad.
I
Say,
do.
Dad, with all due respect, I can't go along with what you're doing. But don't preach to him. Don't try to preach to a man. Just don't go along with him.
Well,
He'll feel this prickling guilt inside him, and his conscience must bring him around. But in fact, that's what I do with all my children. I don't preach. Even with my children, I don't sit down and expound. I really let them discover the truth for themselves. What I do, I stand in contrast to their wrong. I don't correct them. I don't say, you must do this and you must do that. I'm not the force that makes them goody little two-shoes. I don't tell them how to behave. I just hold up a mirror to their misbehavior. They come against it and try to confuse me because they come at me with their mother's confusion that she's put in them, right? And if I get upset with them, it justifies what they do. Like if I got upset with my wife, that would justify what she does. See, because that means you weren't right, and they wouldn't have to look at themselves. But when they come against you with that confusion, and something brightens up within you, because every attack, every temptation is accompanied by the rise of virtue, a strength. So that don't be afraid of temptation. Count it a blessing that you meet with all kinds of temptations. For the trying of your faith worketh patience. Let patience have its perfect works, that you may be entire, lacking nothing. In other words, when people come at you, tempt you, your wife, your children, they do wrong, hold fast. Don't flinch. Don't show the slightest twinge of resentment. And to them, you'll light up like a Christmas tree. And you'll cause them to look at themselves and to realize for themselves what you couldn't have otherwise told them. And then later on, you can expound on the principles of it. Later on, not in the moment. Don't preach in the moment. Wait for them to see it for themselves. Follow that? Then when they've come around and say, yes, Dad, you're right, then you can sit down and you can both then, since they're now compatible with what you have brought them to, you can expound the finer details of it. And they'll love you more for it. Then they'll listen. But a woman, for the most part, would be wise not to go along with a man. Not to hate him for it. And that so the man could see that she doesn't hate him. So the man can see love shining in her, which forces him to look at himself and discover himself, not by her, but by himself. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the 5th program, which I advise my viewers that I have cancelled this program, and we'll probably have about 3 more weeks after this one. 2 more weeks after this one, and that'll be off the air unless you wish to continue the program. I've already tendered my notice. I would like you please to note at the end of the program the information on the screen, whereas you can write to the foundation. We're a non-profit organization, and we need of support, especially this time of year. If you're in the mood for giving, then you can give to the foundation. If we've done you any good, don't send anything if we haven't done you any good. We should have done the good already, you see, and you should have felt it in your heart. And otherwise, we can't continue doing you and your family the good that we can do in the future. I have much more to share with you. thank you very much for listening to the program, and join us next week, next Monday, for another week of this type of enlightenment. Thank you very much.